Flickshot.
My friend. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. Not listening. Not listening.
Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn. Today's deck is an insanely powerful upgrade to a deck that was kind of all the rage a couple of sets ago that really took the meta by storm, and I think most people have sort of forgotten about since then. This deck is called Root of Evil, and the idea is we're going back to Insidious Roots, absolutely popping off with an insane number of plant tokens and just winning the game outright out of nowhere. But we have some crazy new cards that add utility and power to the deck that we didn't have before, such as Overlord of the Balemurk, and a couple other cards that we'll get to when we break down the deck. Before we break down the deck, which we're going to do in just a minute, I want to address something that happened in yesterday's video. So, Fear and Loathing, the deck tech that I put out yesterday for the Esper skeleton enchantment tribal thing, had someone in the comments section mentioning in multiple comments that the deck was no good, listing a whole bunch of decks that it couldn't beat, and urging people in the community not to waste their wild cards and not craft the deck. And I have to say, I work really, really hard to bring you guys decks that I truly believe in. I am transparent. I don't lie to anyone. If I did, you guys would stop watching my content and lose faith in me. So for someone in the community to come into my comments section and make multiple comments about the fact that the community shouldn't trust me and they shouldn't craft the deck really just grinds my gears. And honestly, if it was just me, if he was just insulting me, just insulting the channel, and that's the only effect it had, I wouldn't really care that much. I'd let it blow over. You know, I've gotten plenty of hate in the past and I let it blow over. But the fact that he's urging the community not to craft that deck really just, that pushes it over the line to me. I'm not going to let this guy come in and dictate my community and hurt my community, because I have to point out, all of the new cards in that deck are uncommons. There's not a single new rare. I lie. There's one new rare. One lone copy of Valgavoth's Lair, a new land, is a rare in that deck. It has a ton of new cards in it. They're all uncommons. So the fact that this guy's coming into my comments section and trying to convince my community that I'm misleading them and to not waste their wild cards crafting a budget deck that's only going to use up uncommon wild cards, dude, go touch grass. Go touch grass, but get off my lawn, because we don't need that around here, okay? I'm not going to mislead my community, and I'm not going to let you mislead them. You're probably some butthurt dude who can't get it to work for you on the ladder, that expects it to be turnkey, plug and play, copy it off the net, and just, you know, let it do its thing and autoplay itself and you'll win. But no, the deck takes thought. You have to know what you're doing. You have to play it well, you have to pilot it well, and he's coming in here and trying to convince you guys not to waste your precious uncommon wild cards to craft that deck, knowing full well that he's going to have to contend with it on the ladder, and that the deck is really, really good. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just letting this get to me too much, but the idea that it's swaying people in my community not to give the deck a try when it's a budget deck that only has, I mean, it has rares in the deck, but all of the rares are things from previous sets. There's like a ton of new cards and they're all uncommons. It's only going to take uncommons from the new set. Don't listen to this guy. He's a buffoon. I'm just angry. I apologize to anyone if I've rambled too long, but I'm just angry, and I would like to hope that if I've gotten your subscription, if you're bothering to watch my content, you actually trust me. And I'm never going to bring you a deck that I don't believe in myself. I just won't. It's not who I am. Anyway, with that being said, like the video, please. Help this get out to more people. I could use all the help I can get growing the channel. Subscribe if you're new so you never miss an upload, because I have tons of crazy deck techs on the way. And yes, I firmly believe in all of them as being great deck techs. You have to be a good pilot sometimes, so that could be a thing. And make sure you catch me live Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn. Because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. This video was brought to you by Wonders of the First, but I'll tell you about that later. Let's break down the deck. Well, we're back at it again. Roots has finally reared its ugly head in Duskmourn Standard. And this deck is honestly pretty cracked, but you do have to be careful with how you play some of the new cards that are in the deck. So first of all, Insidious Roots, 2 mana, 1 green, 1 black for an enchantment. Creature tokens can tap to add a mana of any color, and whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 0/1 green plant creature token, and then put +1/+1 counters on each plant you control. This card's nuts. These decks using this card have been around for a while. I think this was actually the very first deck that I made in Standard when this set released. And it absolutely slaps. It can just come out of nowhere and just take over the entire board with an insane amount of plants, and it just gets really crazy. Now, the new cards take it to the next level, but you do have to be a little bit careful. The most notable new card, probably the best new card for this deck, is Overlord of the Balemurk. 5 mana for a 5/5 enchantment creature. It has Impending 5 for 1 black and 1, so you can just pay 2 mana, play it out early, and still get the ETB ability. And that ability is whenever it enters or attacks, you get to mill 4 cards and then return a non-avatar creature card or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. This ability is insane. This card is probably the best card this deck has got, period, since this became a deck. And it's just nuts. 2 mana, not only are you filling up your graveyard with much needed fodder for exiling to trigger your roots on subsequent turns, but it's also pulling something right out of the graveyard immediately that turn and triggering the roots as well. So it just does everything that you want to do, and then eventually when it becomes a creature, you can start attacking with it every turn and pulling more stuff out of the graveyard, milling more things, and just fueling all of your synergies. It's absolutely insane. Now, the one thing I do want to point out is it mills the cards it doesn't surveil. Prior to Duskmourn, almost all of the cards you would use in a deck like this allowed you to surveil. It allowed you to see what you were dumping. And the good side to that is that if you happen to hit an Insidious Roots and you need it, you don't have to dump it in the graveyard. You can keep it on top, make sure you draw it the next turn and get to play it. With a card like Overlord of the Balemurk, you don't get that luxury. If you end up milling the roots into your graveyard, it's just there. And it's really hard to kind of come back from that if you don't at least have 1 roots on the battlefield already. So you do want to be very, very careful. You want to save your cards that mill specifically for last, or at least for after you already, after you already have the roots on the battlefield. Then start using your mill stuff. Until you get the roots into play, until you find your roots, you probably want to lean much more heavily on your surveil cards so that you can dig, find your roots, set yourself up, and then start to gas up your roots with all of your mill stuff. And obviously the best example of one of the cards that mills is the Overlord of the Balemurk. We've also got Patchwork Beastie though. This is 1 green for a 3/3 artifact creature beast, and it has Delirium, so it can't attack or block unless there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, which this entire deck just self-mills and surveils stuff into the graveyard, so it's pretty easy to hit that Delirium. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill a card. So not only does this add much needed board presence, especially if you're up against aggro decks, but it's another enabler for your graveyard to help you mill things away and set up to have things to exile to trigger your roots, which is really, really nice. This is another one of the cards that doesn't surveil and actually does self-mill. But that being said, it is just 1 card, so I think most of the time playing this on 1 and taking that chance that you might hit, the wrong card, I think the chances are very slim that you actually do it, but the benefits far outweigh that. So in the case of Patchwork Beastie, I do think this one is safe to play right away and take your chances. But with something like Overlord of the Balemurk, you do probably want to wait until you have your Insidious Roots in hand or on the battlefield, because there's a good chance that if you're milling 4 cards in one whack, you'll probably hit a Roots. So just be very careful in how you play around these new cards. That being said, both of them offer a ton of value and a ton of power to this already crazy deck. We're also running 3 Broodspinners. This is a new 2/3 reach 2-drop. And when it enters, you surveil 2. So this is one of the new cards that doesn't actually self-mill. It actually does surveil. This is one of the cards you can play early to help you find your Roots, which is nice, and then enable your Roots by putting stuff in the graveyard if you already have it. And then you have this extra value of being able to pay 6 mana, tap and sacrifice the Broodspinner, and create a whole bunch of black and green flying insect creature tokens, which sometimes can make the difference, having that flying. But what's really great about that is because they're all creature tokens, they get the benefit of Insidious Roots as well, where creature tokens can tap for a mana of any color. So the Broodspinner is another way to make 4, 5, sometimes even 6 tokens out of nowhere that can all tap for mana to fuel the rest of your spells. And if you have a Tyvar online, you can use that mana right away. Tyvar's 3 mana Planeswalker. If you guys have played Roots before, you've seen this. It is probably the MVP of the deck because it has 2 very important abilities. You can +1 to untap a target creature, which allows you to use your tap abilities again, but you can also -2 mill 3 cards, return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This allows you to dig for even more things to fill up your graveyard, get extra value, and even put one of those things straight onto the battlefield to trigger your Roots. In a lot of ways, Tyvar is very similar to Overlord, but Overlord gives you more value in the long game, whereas Tyvar is going to get you stuff as soon as it pops, and then it's just going to keep giving you value every single turn. It also allows you to activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste, which means all of the mana you're getting from your plants and now your insects you can use right away, which is kind of gnarly. And there's a few other cards that utilize Tyvar in this deck as well. Just an amazing card in this deck. The other new card we're running just 1 copy of, because I think running more than one would be a bit greedy, is Ghost Vacuum. Just a 1 mana artifact, can tap it, exile a card from any graveyard. So this is a nice way to include something in the deck that allows you to hurt your opponent's Delirium strategies or your opponent's Reanimator strategies, just because you have this incidental way of exiling things from their graveyard. But the real reason it's in here is you start to exile creatures from your own graveyard, and now not only are you triggering your Roots without having to pay any mana whatsoever, because it just taps to exile a card from a graveyard, but eventually if you hit that 6 mana, which is really easy to do with plant tokens that can generate mana, you can tap and sacrifice this and put all of those creature cards that are exiled with it back onto the battlefield as 1/1 spirits with flying counters that still have all of their abilities. So if you have a Patchwork Beastie come back, you're still milling every turn. If you have the Overlord come back, you're still getting the enter trigger and the attack trigger every turn, even though it's just a 1/1 flyer now. If the Broodspinner comes back, you get to surveil again. You get to sacrifice it for the effect again. Like, all of the value that your creatures have, you still get out of the Ghost Vacuum, which is insane when you think about the fact that you're already getting what you want out of it just by exiling creatures and triggering your Roots. So that late game ability to sack it and get everything back is just absolutely insane, and just adds extra value on top of what is already a really good card for the deck. So definitely suggest playing one of these because it's just super, super powerful. But I do think playing more than one might be a bit of a mistake because the abilities get a little bit redundant in multiples. And also, we do want as many creatures as possible in this deck. That's the one thing I want to remind you guys about. I've seen some Roots decks go a little bit thin on creatures to try to add other cards that work really well in a self-mill strategy, but aren't creatures. And on paper, that seems like the right play, but you really have to keep a high threshold of creatures in order to not run out of gas with your Roots. There's nothing worse than getting into a situation where you have your Roots set up and you're all set to win in basically one turn if you can just keep going, and you just run out of creatures because you have too many non-creatures in the deck and you just don't have anything you can exile to trigger the Roots. Stops you dead in your tracks, and maybe you give the other deck enough time to recover and pull the game out. So You definitely want to keep a very high threshold of creatures, so just the one Ghost Vacuum here, but the one copy, absolutely worth playing because it's kind of insane. Let's start at the bottom of the curve and talk about the rest of the deck. We've got 4 Snarling Gorehound because it's just probably the best 1-drop you can play in this deck, probably even better than the Patchwork Beastie, to be completely honest. Every time a creature enters, you're going to get to surveil one as long as it has power 2 or less, but everything has power 2 or less. The insects you make with the Broodspinner have power 2 or less. Even the plants you're making with the roots has power 2 or less because they technically come in as 0/1s and then get the counters. So this is a good way of dumping a whole bunch of stuff into your graveyard. We've also got 4 Rubblebelt Maverick because when you play it from your hand, you get to surveil 2, dig for your roots while setting up your roots with stuff in the graveyard, which is nice. But then it also has a way to exile itself from the graveyard, which can be really important if you don't have another card that can exile stuff from your graveyard to start triggering the roots. Having ways built into the cards that are already in the graveyard themselves to just trigger the roots and start that snowball really matters in certain situations. So being able to just exile Rubblebelt Maverick with just 1 mana with its own ability when it's in the graveyard without relying on other cards to enable it can be really important. We've also got 4 Seed of Hope. I do think this is one of the best non-creature cards you can possibly run in this deck. This is like opt on crack in a deck like this. 1 green mana for an instant, mill 2 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand, and you gain 2 life. So against aggro, you're gaining life, and it's basically, like I said, opt. You're getting to look at 2 cards and put one of them into your hand. As long as both are permanent, there's literally no downside to opt. And in a deck like this, where everything's a permanent, with the exception of Seed of Hope, it's literally opt with upside. It's still instant speed. You can still do it at any time. It triggers your Insidious Roots because it technically pulls something out of the graveyard. And it gives you the 2 life against aggro. Card's just insane. Every Roots deck needs to be running 4, and because of that, there is a lot less room in the deck for other things that are non-creatures, but this absolutely is the number one priority card as far as I'm concerned for non-creatures in the deck, because it's just that good, and it helps you find your roots. That's another thing. Even though it technically mills, you take any permanent from among the milled cards, put it back into your hand. So if you hit your roots, you can grab your roots, put it in your hand, helps you find your roots, and that is an important part of most of the cards that are digging through your deck. Moving on to the 2-drop slot, we already talked about the roots themselves. We've also got 4 Scrapgorger because this does everything you want. Not only can it generate mana so that you can play more things quicker and start to be able to pop off with the roots sooner because of it, but when it taps for mana of a color, you get to exile a card from a graveyard, which also lets you trigger the roots right away. And it's also a really good target for the Tyvar. If you mill the Scrapgorger with the Tyvar, you can bring back the Scrapgorger, and then because of Tyvar's static ability, you can use its ability to tap for mana as though it had haste, tap it for mana immediately, exile a creature from your graveyard, trigger the roots again, and just have that much more of a chance to just snowball into insanity that turn instead of having to wait another turn. So I do think Scrapgorger is one of the best cards you can be running with roots because it's an enabler and it's a ramper and it's just everything you want. It can also attack as a 3/3 once it gets 3 counters on it, which is also kind of nuts. It just does everything you want. Play the card. But we're also going to run 1 Osteomancer Adept, and this is a card that under certain circumstances, I would want to run more than one of, but there's so many cards that want to be in this deck that I think I'm okay with just the 1, and there is a good reason for that. This is a 2/2 Death Toucher for 2. This is a card we saw in Bloom Burrow. You can tap it, and until end of turn, you may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging, in addition to paying their other costs. So, if you tap the Osteomancer Adept, for the rest of the turn, you can play literally every creature from your graveyard. It's just that every time you play one, you have to exile 3 cards from your graveyard. But with all of these cards constantly filling up your graveyard with tons of fodder, you're usually going to have a bunch of lands, a bunch of other things you don't mind exiling in order to bring your creatures back into play. In fact, Overlord of the Balemurk specifically makes the Osteomancer Adept so much better because it mills so many cards for so cheap, and really sets you up to actually have enough cards in your graveyard to really go off with the Adept. That being said, a second Adept doesn't do a lot for you. If you activate both abilities on the same turn, it doesn't add anything extra. Just using the one ability is going to allow you to forage to cast your creature spells for the rest of the turn, and using a second Osteomancer Adept doesn't change that at all. So if there is going to be one creature in the deck that I run one copy of instead of more than one copy, I think the Osteomancer Adept is the right choice, because if you get one online, it's really, really good, but multiple copies after that lose value. Now, you could argue that you want multiple copies just to increase the chances and the likelihood of actually getting one, and the consistency, and I wouldn't disagree, but something has to be cut. You can't fit everything into the deck, so I think it's the card that, you know, second, third, and fourth copies aren't as good is going to be the card that I choose to go to just one copy. Moving on to the 3-drop slot, we already talked about the Tyvar, which is absolutely amazing. We're also running 3 Honest Rutstein. Not only does this reduce the cost of all of your creatures that you play so you can get stuff into play for cheaper, and it is a creature itself, which is not nothing, but when it enters, you get to return any creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which not only gasses you up with more things to cast that now have a cost reduction, but also triggers the roots. So everything works with each other in really great ways, and everything is super synergistic, which I love. We've also got 3 4-drops. This is the only real 4-drop in the deck, and it's just too good to not run. I used to run 4 copies of this, but again, the same reason that I'm running 1 copy of Osteomancer Adept, you just can't fit everything into the same deck. There are too many good cards for this deck. So we're down to 3 Skyfisher Spiders, and I think that's okay, since normally we only need to use it to remove a very problematic permanent a little bit later in the game when we're getting ready to Alpha Strike and there's something that stands in our way. But 4 mana for a 3/3 Reach Spider. When it enters, you can sacrifice another creature, and if you do, destroy target non-land permanent. This allows you to get the most problematic permanent off the battlefield so that you can move ahead with your plan to win the game, but it also allows you to put a creature in your graveyard, which sometimes matters. If you're able to sacrifice a Rubblebelt Maverick or something like that, now you have access to another thing that can exile itself to trigger the roots again, and it can be very valuable. But another thing that's really great about the Skyfisher Spider is if it ever dies and goes to the graveyard, it immediately exiles itself from the graveyard in order to gain you 1 life for each creature card that's in your graveyard. Which is amazing because that self-exile is also going to trigger the roots. So everything about this card works super well with roots. It gives you some, you know, reach potential if you're up against flyers. It gives you the ability to destroy very problematic permanents while still fitting into the creature base of the deck so that we can keep the creature count as high as possible. Card is just nuts, and I love it. The mana base, very specific. We've got 4 Underground Mortuaries so that we can surveil stuff into the graveyard. 3 Restless Cottages because they work amazingly well in this deck. They allow you to mill yourself and make food tokens. Not mill yourself, sorry. Makes a food token and exiles a card from a graveyard. So it's not going to help enable you by milling you, but what it is going to do is help trigger your Insidious Roots itself by exiling something that you've already milled into the graveyard. So Restless Cottage is really good at that. We got the 1 Murex because we can afford to play it. Sometimes the extra tokens might end up mattering, especially when having a Roots out, we can tap those Murex Might tokens for mana, which is really, really nice. The rest of the mana base is trying to be as fast as possible, so 4 Llanowar Wastes, 4 Blooming Marsh, just 1 Forest and 1 Swamp, just in case they hit us with the land destruction. Honestly love this deck. It does have some weaknesses in the current standard meta, but at the same time, it is incredibly powerful. It can come out of nowhere and just win games when the opponent doesn't see it coming, and it's just better than it's ever been, mostly because of this new Overlord of the Balemurk. But man, wait until you see a Ghost Vacuum pop off, because it is just gnarly. With that being said, let's check out the games. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Wonders of the First. Wonders of the First is a brand new collectible card game similar to games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, featuring a unique action-based resource economy that helps avoid pitfalls like mana flood or mana screw, and a battlefield containing multiple realms that unlock over time as you fight for control of the stones. The first 400 card set is called Existence and will launch to retail in the fall, but playtest team starter kits are available to order now. And they haven't forgotten about all you collectors out there. The game contains alternate borderless art variants, as well as highly sought after limited edition numbered prints, culminating in a one-of-one stone foil. And the best part is that the developers have a community-first approach, with 8 print-and-play decks available on their website, as well as a version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator, all for free. For more information, be sure to check out wondersccg.com today. That's wondersccg.com. Alright, this actually looks good. We have our roots in our opening hand, which is nice. We'll start with the Blooming Marsh and the Patchwork Beastie. Then we'll go Wastes into Roots. Try and get that down as soon as possible. Or maybe we go Scrapgorger. I actually think Scrapgorger's probably better. Because then on turn 3 we can play the Roots and immediately trigger it with the Scrapgorger. Yeah. Let's do that. If we get lucky and get a land, we can also Overlord of the Balemurk and trigger it again, which is awesome. Alright, Dream Thief coming in. Skull Dweller coming in. Go for the throat. That was mean. That was very mean. He went right for my throat. He went right for my throat. Well, guess we do it again, right? Eventually we'll have plants. One of these days we will have plants. Liliana?
Happy to help, but I'm taking the credit when we win.
We already got 2 creatures in the yard, so I think we can safely sack the beastie, giving us 3. And then we can start to go to town. Right? Black, green, roots. And then Seed of Hope. Exile Skyfisher Spider. Since we can't get it back with a future Tyvar, that's probably the best one to hit. Another Overlord. That seems really good. So now we have 2 plants. If he upticks, we'll probably just stick the Broodspinner in there. Gives us another creature in the yard. We could do the Overlord. Yeah, I think it's probably better to get a Reacher down that can block like the Dream Thief or whatever. Alright, so we're going to start with this. Play his second Roots. We'll play a second Roots. Then we'll tap you for green, and we'll Seed of Hope. And we'll get back, I guess, a Skyfisher Spider. We can use that to kill the 𝐾𝐞𝐧𝑚 with a little bit of luck. And then for now, we need to deal with it, so I do think we probably do this. And then exile. Guess we'll exile one of the Scrapgorgers. We'll still have one in the yard for a potential Tyvar later. And get some more... Okay, he's just gonna scoop. Too much for 𝐿𝐼𝑛𝑠𝑖𝑑𝑖𝑜𝑢𝑠, I guess. Let's see if we can make it work. We'll keep 7. Hello, friend. We're gonna go Gorehound on 1, Broodspinner on 2, Mortuary on 3, into God knows what. We're gonna give him the shrug. You can complain about etiquette all you want. Snarling Gorehound is on the battlefield. Let's surveil 3. Oh hey, I played the wrong land. I played the wrong land, and now I'm sad. Oh well. It's fine. It'll be fine. We'll play the roots next turn. We'll use the Ghost Vacuum to exile Overlord. We'll make a plant. Everything will be fine. But we would definitely be way further ahead if I didn't screw that up. Surveilling, of course we hit a Seed of Hope. And the turn, we can do this at any time, so I'm not really worried about doing it on our turn. Enduring Innocence, sure. Alright, we will Ghost Vacuum. We will Ghost Vacuum. Make some plants. Do some surveilling. Rusty is in the yard. We'll start with Broodspinner. See if we can get some more stuff in the yard. More stuff has been found. Tyvar. But I really like Tyvar. Yeah, we'll get rid of it. We can't stop the floodgates. We can't stop the floodgates. Just gotta keep going. Alright, swing with the Menace, guys. Once again, we'll save the Ghost Vacuum for his turn. You never know if he might have something he needs out of the graveyard on his turn, and then we could put a stop to it, so it makes sense to just wait. We don't get any extra value by using it on our turn, so it is what it is. We've also got 6 permanent types, or 6 card types rather, in the yard, so Broodspinner could pop to make 6 flyers that could all tap for mana because of the roots, which is actually kind of amazing. Builder's Talent, sure. Takes a boy, draws a card, says hello. Hello. Level 2 makes sense. Market gnome, sure. Alright, we're gonna eat the Overlord. Make a boy. Do more surveilling. Beastie away. Land away. We are crowd surfing. Because there is quite a crowd growing at the moment. I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you noticed. Alright, how do we get some stuff into the yard? Let's tap you for black. Let's exile a Patchwork Beastie. And we'll get some more surveilling going. One, two, three. How can I use that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I only have five mana, right? I am so confused. Oh, I already have one in my pool. That's why I could. Don't think it makes sense though. I'm gonna do this. Sacrifice you. Take out the Builder's Talent. And then pass a turn. We'll hold up the Ghost Vacuum. And then we should have absolute shenanigans ready for next turn. Let's see. Rutstein, Scrapgorger, Beastie. Say it ain't so. I will not go. 2 blocks. I mean, it's clear he's gonna Sunfall, right? So maybe I shouldn't have blocked like that. Yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. I mean, I still think we win, though. Mortuary. Surveil away the Rutstein. We'll eat one of the Rutsteins. Make another plant. Swing for 2. We're gonna Ghost Vacuum. And it's gonna be insane. 2 Balemurks. A Rutstein. We're still gonna get all of the triggers off of it. So it's gonna be kind of bananas. No blocks. We'll take your 8 damage, sir. Possibly Finn. I'll have to try that next time. Oh, baby. I guess we return Another Rutstein. Nothing crazy. And then we return a Tyvar. And then we return an Osteomancer. And then we make a bunch of plants. And then we do stuff, right? Put a counter on something. Guess this guy. And we're pretty wide now. I think we're good. We can block with something. These have finality counters, so I don't really want to block with them. Let's just block here. Does he have another sunfall? Hey, what's up, boss? He has another sunfall. But we got all the stuff back, so it kind of doesn't matter. Kinda doesn't matter.
Hold your applause. It's not a victory without you.
Scrapgorger in play. We'll go. We need to be able to surveil first, right? So let's do this. Or not surveil, but just put stuff in our graveyard. Grab another Scrapgorger. Play Rutstein. Exile Beastie. Get back Gorehound. Play Gorehound. Play Scrapgorger. Guess we gotta dump the roots. Play the Osteomancer Adept. Exile. Running out of creatures. We're running out of creatures. I guess in order to get another plant, we kind of have to exile the Rubblebelt Maverick. But we can dump a Broodspinner. And then play the Osteomancer. Dump an Overlord. Can we make 2 mana? No. No, we can't. Otherwise, we'd be able to play the Broodspinner. You know what we can do, though? Impending. Exile 3 cards from my graveyard. Land, land, land. Dump you. Haha. So confused. Alright, we're just doing everything. We're just doing all the things. Right? Dump. We've got 2 mana. So we just keep doing all the things. Right? Exile, exile, exile. Dump. We're almost dead. we're almost out of cards. I need to stop. I need to stop. I need to stop. pass a turn. Because that's enough for lethal. So I need to just stop going wider and hope he doesn't have a third Sunfall, which he shouldn't. And then just win. Right? We can cast Skyfisher Spider next turn. We can crack the Broodspinner for 6 insects. My go? What? It's your go. He's just tickling all my cards. I don't know if he's actually upset with me, or if he just did that a bunch while it was my turn and it's delayed and now I'm seeing them all. But I mean, I was legitimately trying to figure out everything I should do throughout all of that, so I definitely wasn't like slow playing. Not purposefully. Sacrifice the thing we just played. Kill that. And then we'll try attacking. It should be enough for lethal. Should be enough. Should be enough. And that is a good point, 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐵𝑒𝑐𝐿𝐻𝐿. It's the control player that's salty. Which is kind of hilarious, because control players' entire decks are built around slow play. But I mean, there was a lot of decisions to make there. A lot. The Yorgos are still coming. Well, we'll just give you the shrug. Is what it is. All right, this actually looks pretty good. We'll keep this. Start with a Blooming Marsh and a Patchwork Beastie. We probably want to save the Overlord as long as possible, so that we can try to get a Roots before we mill 4 and risk milling the Roots. Do we play the Scrapgorger first? Nah, we'll Broodspinner. There's a chance we can turn on the Patchwork Beastie. Yeah, we'll dump them both. Take action. Another land. Draw another land. Screw it. We're gonna take our chances. We are going to take our chances. We'll bring back Tyvar. Because why not? And, I mean, I guess we can do this. It's one less to use when we have roots, but just getting the value right now is probably a good thing. Overlord of the Balemurk is ready to go. Hey, what's up, Mathis? Welcome to the stream, my friend. 𝐀𝐫𝐞𝐧𝑚 Beastie Befriender. Take action. Dump a Seed of Hope. We have a land. We really need an Insidious Roots. The problem is everything we can cast right now just mills at best. Doesn't actually let us find our roots. So things are gonna get problematic, I think.
I won't let you fall.
Put a Scrapgorger into play. Exile the Not on my watch. Attack with the 4/4. Overlord's down to 3 counters. Mathis has his power back on. That's fair, Mathis. Electricity is like air. You don't know it's there till it's not. That's fair. Alright, we got a Jolly Balloon Man, which is going to create another token, correct? Seems pretty good. Seems pretty good. We will mill a card. Snag a land. Play Rutstein. Get back. Can we just get back another Patchwork Beastie? We have another artifact in the yard now. Yeah, I think that's what we do. I think that's what we do. Play you. Exile a land. And then we will play a Patchwork Beastie. And we'll attack for 4. We've got a Death Toucher that can trade. We can also double block a 4/4 with Rutstein and the Patchwork Beastie. And trade 1 for 1. The little pumpkin is asleep on my lap. Oh, we're definitely going to do Zerrooms at some point, Mathis. Absolutely. Alright, we got a Reluctant Role Model. He's going to make a copy. Interesting. It's actually kind of cool, because it will get a counter, and then it will die and put the counter on whatever you want. I sort of love that. I wonder which one triggers first. Wait, does he get both? Oh, that's so cool. He gets double counters because both role models trigger. Dude, that's wild. I like that. I like that. I like it. I like it. What can I say? I like it. We're gonna attack with this guy, but because he can't block it very effectively. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna activate Osteomancer. We're gonna play Broodspinner so that we can get more stuff in the yard. Exile, exile. Don't want to exile my last land. Gotta be careful about that. Surveil 5. Or, sorry, Surveil 2. Yeah, we'll get those both out of the way. And then... I guess we play... Do we need a creature back in our hand? Not really. We will take advantage of the Osteomancer, though. So we'll go 1 Seed of Hope, 1 land, and... we'll dump the Rutstein, because it'll be a lot easier to get... You know what? Actually, we'll dump the land. Creatures and lands are the most prevalent in the deck. So if we have to run out of one or the other in the graveyard, it's better to pick one of those. Get rid of you. And end the turn. Balemurk's down to 1. Graveyard's looking a little bit rough, not gonna lie. Split up. I have a deck with split up in mind. Orzhov control. It's gonna be bananas. Hey, what's up, DJ? Welcome to the stream. More Tobies. More Tobies. No blocks. We're gonna have to use the Broodspinner to make a whole lot. Hey, there's our roots. Hey, there's another roots. We need to make a whole bunch of plants so that we can sack Broodspinner to make a whole bunch of spiders. Right? Basically. Bandit, you're snoring. Bandit. Bandit, you're snoring. You're snoring right into my microphone. So first things first. Do we have any ways of dumping other cards into the yard? I'm gonna go with no. So second things second, we gotta pop the Broodspinner. And we'll get rid of our Honest Rutstein so we can get a plant. And we'll get rid of his Fable Passage. Oh, we only got 4 because I hit the Rutstein. That makes me very sad. That actually makes me very sad. That actually makes me very sad. Alright, we'll pass the turn. Bandit! You're snoring! Stop it! I'm gonna have to put him in the bedroom. Sounds like a goddamn vacuum cleaner. Come on, Kitty. I have a kitty. She says hello. She says, why did you wake me up? I was sleeping on your lap. Okay, you can go back down there. That's fine. That's fine. Do the sleeping. Do the purring. It's all good. This man doesn't know what he wants to do. This man doesn't know what he wants to do. Alright, Jolly Blue Man the role model. Sounds about right. He knows we have to block all of these, right? Yeah, so we are dead. We are the dead. You know, maybe if we saw Roots when it mattered, instead of like 17 turns into the game, maybe we would have been fine. Alright, we're going to keep this. It's a little bit slow, but I think it'll work. Restless Cottage on 1. We'll go Mirex Scrapgorger. Alright, we're going to go Mortuary. Dump the Beastie. And Tyvar. -2.
Talk about this fight for centuries. Your story
We'll grab
is
the
not
Gorehound. And now it's time. We have all of the roots. And no new cards, but it's fine. Roots. I guess we attack with a Gorehound. And then we untap it. Wow, what a lame turn.
Take my hand.
What a lame turn. Probably should have just played the cottage. Mirex, man. Mirex hates me. Anoint with Affliction, sure. We're gonna try to set up for next turn. I could just ditch the Tyvar and trigger the Roots now. But if we set up for next turn, we get even more value off the third Roots. Alright, he's gonna kill our Tyvar, right? Oh, he didn't kill it. He did take away our ability to trigger our Roots, though. Which is kind of a problem. Swing. Exile Rutstein. Plant. Untap the cottage.
I believe in you, friend.
Go black, green, play another Roots, and then we'll see what happens next turn. We have 1 creature in the yard. 3 already exiled. Tyvar's toast. We do have the cottage, so we're not completely in top deck mode. Take action. Gorehound down. Oh, he scoops. He can't get there. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.